have the pleasure of introducing our next speaker, who is an expert in social media. And for those of you who were here at last year's Sharp meeting, we introduced social media at that time. And since then, I know a lot of you have taken advantage of a lot of the tools and resources that we built. And you have developed some really great profiles on LinkedIn. Some of you have established Twitter and Facebook accounts, and a number of you have taken advantage of the producer microsites that we make available to Sharp winners. But I know a number of you have recently mentioned that you're ready to take the next step in social media, and you're not always too sure how to budget your time, and you're curious about what you can do to kind of take it to the next level. So today's speaker, Knebl, is going to show us how to leverage LinkedIn to do more research, to build more connections, and to really establish your online presence. Kevin is the owner of Knebl Communications, a Colorado-based professional speaking and training company. Kevin advises small, medium, and Fortune 500 companies on online and offline networking, social media, and relationship building. He has over 20 years experience in interpersonal skills training, sales, and networking. He's recognized as a LinkedIn subject matter expert and has trained hundreds of organizations and tens of thousands of individuals on the most effective uses of LinkedIn. Prior to his current career, Kevin was a top producing salesperson, so we feel that he's uniquely qualified to show us all how to use LinkedIn as a networking and sales tool. Please welcome Kevin Knebl.
Everybody, I'm going to try and move this up here without losing any of the connections, so bear with me for a quick second. And how'd you like that cool video they showed? Those things are amazing, how you can actually generate those, and unless you're in sales, you probably don't get all those inside jokes that other people that aren't in sales wouldn't get. So I want to thank a couple people for being here today. It was really an honor to be here, and I want to thank Nancy Gospel. I want to thank David Berno. I want to thank John Shack, Hannah Mantel, and I'm probably forgetting somebody. But I've gotten to know a number of you folks over the last couple of months, and Joni Riley, who basically runs the whole place, it sounds like to me. So thank you very much for having me here today. And could you pull up my my LinkedIn? There we go. Perfect. Okay. Typically, when I do presentations, I do anything from an hour to a full day, 8-hour session. So I've got about 45 minutes this morning, and then about 10 minutes for Q&A. So we're going to go very, very quickly. Obviously, in an hour or less, we can't cover every single aspect of LinkedIn, considering that typically I take 6-7 hours to do something like this. So we're going to go very quick. I'm originally from New Jersey. I speak at about 800 words a minute with gusts up to 3,000. So I know there's some East Coast folks here, so if I go really quick, I just say buckle up. We got a lot to cover in a short amount of time. Let me give you my quick background because it does paint some relevance to what I'm going to cover here today. I'm originally from Jersey. I moved to Colorado about 7 years ago. I'm in the Witness Relocation Program. What I used to do for a living years ago was I actually used to be a piano player in New York. And if you're familiar with Gershwin, Cole Porter, Jerome Kern's, Rodgers and Hammerstein, Irving Berlin, all that beautiful music from the 30s and the 40s, that's what I did. I was a pianist, and I can assure you, if you're a young single guy in New York and you can play piano and sing, it is a great gig. So some of you got that. So what happened was I met my wife, and I met my wife because I was supposed to play piano at her wedding. She never married that loser. But I married Karen. I married way above my station in life. I've been married 17 years. I overmarried completely, but I figured out very quickly when I got married that playing piano, it really wasn't going to support my family. So I had to get into something, but my background was really music, so I got into sales. Because I always say there's a job you can get no matter where you are in the world, it's 100% commission sales. And I was terrified out of my mind. If you've ever heard of that right brain, left brain thing, I don't have a left brain cell in my body. I can look like a guy that just walked off of Wall Street, but if you get to know me, you're going to figure out very quickly I'm a hippie in a suit, okay? I am an artsy-fartsy, right-brain musician kind of guy, and now I had to get into sales, which was really, like scary, like Depends, Imodium scared, like that kind of scared. But I was very blessed that I had a mentor early on who took me aside and he said, Kev, let me just give you some advice. He says, you seem like a nice guy. What most people do when they get in sales is they run out and they buy all the Tom Hopkins, Zig Ziglar, Brian Tracy, Jeffrey Gitomer books, and he says, I'm not suggesting that you shouldn't read those. I'm suggesting you do read those, but read them later. And I said, all right, what should I read first? He said, go down to Barnes & Noble, get a book written back in the 30s called How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. He said, if you read that a whole bunch of times, I bet you'll do pretty well in sales. So the short story is 36 months later, I'm working for an international consulting company, hundreds of salespeople in 11 countries around the world, and I'm the top salesperson in the world. It's not because I was born with the gift of gab or I could sell ice cream to Eskimos or anything like that. It was because I applied what I learned in How to Win Friends and Influence People in books similar to that to my sales efforts, and they did extremely well. One day I had a CEO, I was selling to CEOs, who took me aside. He said, Kev, would you come in and train my salespeople how to sell the way you sold me? And I said, I started laughing. I said, are you out of your mind? And he goes, what do you mean am I out of my mind? And I said, I don't even know how I talked you into buying something from me, and now you want me to train your salespeople. And he said, you know, I really like that. He goes, I like that disarming honesty. Now, don't think for a second that I'm saying that I'm Gandhi or Mother Teresa or anything like that. I'm not saying that at all. I am from Jersey. But I learned very quickly, instead of taking the mental energy to try and figure out clever, backdoor, sneaky ways to get appointments or convince people to sell, I just chose to be so disarmingly honest that people had no choice but to believe me. Again, I'm not trying to, this isn't a come by our group hug moment, but I figured out that it worked out very, very well. And what I really started to do at that point, back around 95, was start to develop my speaking business. And for about the last 15, 16 years, I've been speaking all around the world on effectively how to build and enhance mutually beneficial win-win relationships that lead to revenue. I was an early adopter on social media, not because I've got tape on my glasses. I don't. I've never, by the way, I've never in my life created an Excel spreadsheet, a Word document, or a PowerPoint presentation, and I'm kind of proud of that. I never will either. I play to my strengths and I outsource my weaknesses. But I was an early adopter on social media because I said, oh, this is just another way to network. So now, knowing that social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, and everything else is so white hot, a lot of what my time is spent training on how to use these tools. But the reason I'm giving you this whole backstory is because, if I can be quite frank, and I might say some things that might sound somewhat shocking, but we're all professional salespeople and we can take the truth, you could train a monkey to stand up in front of people and say, turn this dial, crank this lever, turn this switch to make a LinkedIn profile. Crank this little knob to send out a tweet on Twitter. Here's how you make a Facebook fan page. Can we just agree that that's just technical crap? That's what it is. And I don't care how sophisticated technology gets. At the end of the day, professionals realize it's always about relationships, only every time. So no matter how sophisticated technology gets, and I'm not in any way putting down technology, I'm just putting it in its right place. Technology is a great tool, but at the end of the day, if you hear me say this once, you'll probably hear me say it 10 times over the next 45 minutes. Write this one in stone, take it to the grave, it's as true as gravity, and all of you already know it intuitively. All things being equal, people do business with and refer business to people who they know, like, and trust. That is as true as gravity. Game over. Tip your waitresses. See them. That's Bob Berg, who I consider to be the best networking teacher in the world. That's one of his lines, and I steal it all the time, but I give him credit for it. All things being equal, people do business with and refer business to people who they know, like, and trust. So for every minute that you're learning how to use social media, spend a corresponding minute leveraging relationship skills. And that might sound very simplistic, but the truth is simple, and the truth will make you a lot of money. There's a lot of people running around the world right now that are so-called social media gurus and all this kind of stuff. By the way, I don't call myself a guru, an expert, a master of time, space, and dimension, or anything like that, but my clients do. And I always say it's kind of like being a lady. If you have to tell people you are, right? So, but it's okay. These are the jokes, folks. So, but it's okay. It's okay if your clients call you a rock star, right? You don't need to toot your own horn. Let other people toot your horn. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time here just talking about LinkedIn real quick. Sometimes I hear people that have a little bit of gray in their hair, and I can say that because I have a little bit of gray in my hair, and they get intimidated by this stuff. And if you get intimidated by it, that's absolutely fine. Sometimes people that have a couple more years, they think, oh, I'll just outsource this to an admin and they'll just handle all this for me. And I try to keep analogies very, very simple. Do you outsource an appointment? Do you outsource a networking meeting? Of course not. You would never outsource that. You have to be there. It's you. It's your presence. And also, I would turn the tables and say, if you have a little bit of gray in your hair, you're actually in a much better position than a 20 or a 30-year-old who's real good technologically. And I'll tell you why. Just because you have some 20 or 30-year-old who's really good at their iPhone and all these apps and all that kind of stuff, put some context into this. They don't have the business acumen, the relationship skills, the prospecting, lead generation, business development skills, the sales skills, the life skills that you have. And to think that they're going to go rock the world with social media is naive. Actually, somebody with a little bit of gray in their hair is in a better position once they start to understand the basics of how to use these online tools, because they can take all those years of experience and apply them to an online platform in addition to an offline platform. So I know my audience. I know that when I speak to a group like this, some of you in the room are like, LinkedIn? Holy crap, that is like very intimidating. I consider email high tech. You've got other people in the room who are already consider yourself LinkedIn rock stars and you already know everything about everything. Okay, so I'm going to kind of start at the shallow end and I'm going to move very quickly, but obviously we're not going to turn you into 10th level ninja sensei, Mr. Miyagi, wax on, wax off, LinkedIn gurus in 45 minutes. Okay, so I'm going to hang around after this. If you want to ask me questions or anything like that, I'd be happy to help you any way I can. I just want to also mention that you guys have some awesome microsites. Now, I'm sure that Jim is in the room somewhere here, but I've looked at some of these microsites, and these things look great. They look awesome. So make sure that you're leveraging this, but also Jim has here, he's got a place where you can connect to him on LinkedIn on his microsite. And the same thing with, let me get up here, Annette. So Annette has a great microsite also. I know it's just down in New Orleans, Annette, and she's got hers integrated into her LinkedIn profile too. So let's talk just for a quick second about why LinkedIn's important. Here's why it's important. In a more and more interconnected, over-caffeinated, hyper-competitive, 24/7, 365 Crackberry, Blackberry world, people are in a hurry. Sales, some things in sales are never going to change. You're going to have to identify a prospect, you're going to have to explain or deliver a good or service, you're going to have to overcome objections, and you're going to have to close. You're always going to have to do that. But nowadays, people that are on the other end of the desk, people that are making the buying decisions, have an infinite number of ways that they can do their research and they can vet professionals to determine whether or not they want to do business with them. But it also works for you. Professionals always understand that everything comes back to relationships, and now by building an effective LinkedIn profile, you can actually portray yourself as the professional you are, and it will serve you very, very well in your sales efforts. By the way, LinkedIn's been around for 8 years. Some people think, oh, it's been around just a couple of years. No, it's been around for 8 years. I was very fortunate that I got involved with LinkedIn 8 years ago. I don't work in any way for LinkedIn. I don't get compensated by LinkedIn, but I learned about it 8 years ago, so I've been using it a long time. By the way, LinkedIn's been threatening to do an IPO for 5 years. Today's Tuesday. They're doing it this Thursday. Okay? So this is a big week at LinkedIn Central in California, but 48 hours from now, a couple guys are going to become very, very rich. So LinkedIn's been around for a long time. LinkedIn is not a nice to have. For years, I was the voice in the wilderness screaming, you need to learn about LinkedIn, you need to learn about LinkedIn. I don't need to scream it so much anymore. People are figuring out that they need to learn about this because it will help you make more money, and it will absolutely help you generate more leads and more business development opportunities. I was actually very honored that back in October of last year, McGraw-Hill called me up. And they said, Kev, once I figured out it wasn't Ashton Kutcher punking me, they said, you know, we know who you are, we watch what you do, and you've got a very unique skill set. You're the only guy we can find who was a top producing salesperson internationally. You've been speaking about networking and relationship building for 20 years, and you obviously know how to leverage social media. That's kind of a perfect storm. Please don't take that as me being arrogant. That's not my intention at all. But I know that when I talk to sales-driven organizations, I'm not some theorist that doesn't understand what you deal with on a daily basis in terms of your sales role. So they asked me to write a book. I wrote a 275-page book that comes out in July, 60 days from now, specifically designed for salespeople on how to use LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter for lead generation and business development, step by step, boom, boom, boom. So I apologize that I'm here in May, but if I was here in July, I'd give you all a copy of the book. So anyway, there's a book coming out. So let's talk about LinkedIn. The average LinkedIn user is 43 years old and earns $109,000 a year. This is not Facebook, this is not Twitter. I love Facebook and Twitter, and I teach organizations how to use them all day long, but this is a different animal. This is the most professional business networking platform in the world. Average user, 43 years old, makes $109,000 a year. This is not an electronic bathroom wall. This is worthy of your time, okay? LinkedIn is a database. It is a database on steroids. It is the most advanced database ever created in the history of Earth for business professionals. There's not even a close second. This is it. This is the 900-pound gorilla. If you do nothing else beyond what I'm going to start with, except for just build a robust LinkedIn profile, that's all you do, that will serve you well and that will help you make more money. Now we can go much, much deeper down the rabbit hole, but if all you did was build a robust profile, you can present yourself effectively.